questions are asked through the chair and answered through the chair. And we believe that you are up to the task. And before we do so, I'll give you an opportunity to make a short statement of not more than 10 minutes about yourself. Who is Alfred Mutua and why is he before us? Then we'll go to checking on your documentation and start the questions and answers. Karibu. Alfred Mutua ni nani? Tell us.
Asante sana.
English is more preferable. Your choice is up to you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, I'm very honored to be in this committee. It's a very, very important process in our democracy. I want to first thank His Excellency the President for nominating me to this very important office to be able to serve the people of Kenya. My story is very simple. I tell people that I'm a walking miracle. I was born in Ukambani. My parents were not wealthy. They were public servants. Low cadre public servants. I grew up in Kibera, Makina Estate. I remember my recollection as a child was fighting with rats to use the toilet in those mud houses. Later we moved to Kawangware, Ruto satellite. I lived in a wooded shack until I was 21 years old. When I was in Form 2, school fees ran out and I stopped going to school because we were poor. But because I taught Sunday school and God had favor in me, Mzee wa Kanisa, the late Hezron Ithaka, paid for my school fees. And so I went back to school. In between that time when I was out, I pushed a lot of wheelbarrows and did some jengo work to keep on going. Later on, missionaries came and they were impressed by this young boy who was a strong Christian teaching Sunday school. And when they went back to the US, they wrote to me and I got a scholarship to go to the United States to study. So after I finished my Form 5, Form 6, I went to the United States and I studied there for 7 years as a member of the diaspora, did a bachelor's and a master's degree. I came back to Kenya where I taught at Daystar University. I also worked at several media houses including The Nation and The Standard. And then I went on a scholarship to Australia for my doctorate in 1998, and 4 years later, at the age of 31, turning 32, I got my doctorate in communication and media. I was headhunted. I went to the United Arab Emirates as an assistant professor of communication and media. I was able to undertake a lot of research in the Middle East. I was a proficient writer, wrote a column called Msafiri. I wrote a lot of columns for the Sunday Nation. And then I was headhunted again to come to Kenya. I was interviewed and I became the first government spokesperson at the age of 33 in the government of the late President Mwai Kibaki. Nearly 10 years later, after we got a new constitution, I went to Machakos where I served for 2 terms as the governor of Machakos. I'm a simple man who believes that the essence of leadership and the essence of all of us to be here is to make the life of others better. I'm lucky, one among many, to be where I am today. So my aspirations in life is to be able to uplift others who are not as lucky as I am, to make their life better and to bring a sense of fairness so that hard work is also repaid by success in life. Najivunia kuwa Mkenya.
Thank you for taking less than half of the time. We now want to know about your documentations that have already been requested of you. Do you have your compliance with tax obligations to the state with a KRA clearance or compliance? You'll give it to our clerk. Clearance with the Higher Education Loans Board. Clearance with Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, Certificate of Good Conduct from DCI, Your academic certificates, even if you have copies, originals must be availed to be seen and compared. Your national identity card, and you may tell us, are you a dual citizen, being a citizen of Kenya and any other jurisdiction?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm a citizen of only one country, and that is Kenya.
Excellent. What is your financial net worth?
Approximately 420 million shillings, Mr. Chairman.
And what are your current and anticipated sources of income?
I have businesses, hotels, and a few apartments, and a few biasharas here and there. Nothing much.
Here and there. You're a hustler. Have you ever been adversely associated with practices that depict you as bias, in favoritism or nepotism in the discharge of public affairs and duties?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Have you ever been charged and convicted of an offense?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Particularly in matters of personal interest or conflict of interest in the discharge of public duties?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I will now invite members to ask you questions. And I can see interest is immense. I'll start with Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Mutua, congratulations on your nomination for this post. As you know, Kenya has a strong presence in the diaspora, the Middle East, the United States, Europe, and so on. Recently, there has been a focus on Kenyan workers in the Middle East who have suffered various forms of abuse and even death during their stay there. What measures will you put in place, if approved, to ensure that the migrant workers are documented, protected, and fully enjoy the rights accruing to them in accordance with the international labor laws?
Dr. Mutua, you will record the questions. We'll take batches of 4. Then you answer. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Speaker. And I'll skip the first question because it's been covered by the Honorable Sholei. Dr. Mutua, you indicate, my question comes from the self-declaration, the questionnaire. You indicate that you are worth about 420 million. Then on deferred income number 21 and the sources of income, you've only indicated that pension is the only deferred income you expect. Then sources of income in salary from government of Machakos, having been governor. Maybe to begin with, how much were you worth before you became governor Machakos? And if the only other source of income deferred is pension, and I did hear you indicate to the Speaker that you have other businesses here and there, do they constitute sources of income as you would have indicated in your form? And if they do, how much is it? How much are you earning? And maybe I would want to hear how much you are worth before you became governor, and whether the 420 million, you would also tell us whether it would be assets, because I've seen other nominees at least give us a schedule of an appendix of what constitutes that 420 million. So I'm not able to tell, is it money you have earned from previous employment, as a lecturer, as a government spokesperson? How has this been built up? And maybe how much do you expect to be worth in another 10 years?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor Mutua, you are the first governor we are interviewing on this committee today at least. And there is a worrying trend of governors having been investigated by investigative agencies for quite some time, with cases not ending up in court. And you are one such example. I want to specifically address two issues with regard to Machakos County during your 10-year tenure as the governor of the county. And one issue that has been investigated, and we are yet to see the outcome of the investigations, is a scandal concerning dams. A scandal. There is a dam by the name Marumba. I don't know if you can, yeah? You know about it? Marumba Dam, where the county government of Machakos spent a whooping 89 million Kenya shillings without anything being done. This was meant to go towards the siltings of the dam. This money was paid out, and nothing, completely nothing was done here. In addition, the Danish International Development Agency pumped in 50 million Kenya shillings, again here, without any tangible result. You want perhaps to enlighten this committee, to update this committee. What became of this project? How much money has been pumped into it so far in total? What became of the investigations by the investigative agencies? And what are the measures being taken to recover this money that essentially belongs to the public? Two, is the now infamous procurement of 16 vehicles by the Machakos County government under your watch. Another mega scandal that was investigated, and indeed the matter ended up in court way back in 2014. Somehow, come the year 2018, the matter was dropped, or the charges were dropped, after a purported agreement between the EACC, the Attorney General, and the DPP. Could you clarify, Governor Mutua, how this came about, and what became again of the monies that were pumped into this white elephant project? Thank you.
Boy.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to ask the nominee that while serving as governor, elected in 2013 on a Wiper ticket, you branded all county government projects with your photos and the words Maendeleo Chap Chap. This was eventually registered as a political party, and it is the one that you used to vie for the seat in 2017, after the public had been able to see these in all images on all county projects. Mr. Speaker, isn't this an abuse of office based on the strict reading of article on the chapter 6 on leadership and integrity, particularly article 73 on responsibilities of leadership, and article 75 on the conduct of state officers, because this was use of public funds to advance personal interest. And finally, Mr. Speaker, on the nominees' democratic ideals, considering that the office for which is being nominated requires one person who is able to particularly know exactly where they put their signature, especially because we are going to be dealing with international treaties. During the campaigns, the last campaigns of 2022, the nominee signed into the agreement of Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance, and later on went publicly to say that even after signing, he did not know exactly what he was signing. Might this be something we would be worried about, considering he will be CS if he's approved by the House, and he would be probably have to deal with reading documents for signing on behalf of the country? Thank you, Chair.
Can answer those, Dr. Mutua?
Thank you very much,
Take another batch.
Mr. Chair, thank you. On the issue of the diaspora, Mheshimiwa Gladys Sholei, through Mr. Chair, it is quite unfortunate that as we sit here, Kenyans have died and have been mistreated in some parts of the world where they go to seek employment. It is quite a shame. I found out that we've lost 85 Kenyans in the last 3 months, and about 1,000 have been repatriated, especially from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where they have gone. I've looked into the matter and I've seen systematic failure in systems, from how they are recruited here and how they are let to operate when they get to Saudi Arabia and other places. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is a friendly country. We have an embassy there, they have an embassy here. The kingdom and the government of Saudi Arabia are not involved in this. But there's a question that we're asking ourselves, and that is, a lot of Kenyans go overseas. They go to Qatar, they go to Dubai, United Arab Emirates, they go to Singapore, they go to many other countries, but yet they are dying in Saudi Arabia. There is a problem. I've seen a tendency where there is a blaming of the victims. I heard the other day some people saying the problem is with our girls. It's blaming the victims. It's very, very bad. There's a big problem, and if I am cleared and nominated, I'm cleared and then I'm sworn in, I'm going to ensure that we work with the labor team and the labor ministry to ensure there are systems in this country so that we are able to know who really needs to go overseas, how it is done. Are these girls trained? How do they get to go there? When they arrive in Saudi Arabia or other countries, do we monitor where they are, where they live, etc., etc.? Well, I'm going to put stringent measures, and I'm going to make it my first trip overseas, if I'm approved and sworn in, will be to Saudi Arabia and the Gulf area, personally, to take care of this problem. But more so, we have lost 85 girls within the last 3 months. These are Kenyan citizens. These are Kenyans, and their deaths cannot be in vain. I'm going to work with the Minister of Interior. I'm going to work closely with the Saudi Arabian embassy and Saudi Arabian embassy and the government, so that we can even allow our DCI to go to Saudi Arabia with me and investigate each and every death that has occurred, so that each and every person who participated in the death of these girls is brought to book and charged. These are Kenyan lives. We need to send a message that no Kenyan will die overseas or get out overseas, and the government does nothing about it. So I'm going to lead from the front and to ensure that this never happens again. But we're going to take care of some of the systematic failures that we have seen. Cartels that are operating here and other places, we'll take care of them and ensure that the life and sanctity of Kenyans is protected. The second question was about the wealth before I became governor. Before I became governor, my wealth was about close to, let's say, over 200 million. By that time, I had already invested, and the investments have been able to grow. What I presented were assets in terms of land that I had acquired from monies that I got when I worked in the Middle East, businesses that I had been able to start. In the form, self-declaration form, I'd also listed a few of the companies that I own, that I'm a shareholder in that list, and that shows my source of income that will be able to continue. Within the next 10 years, by God's blessing, I hope to have doubled my income through the businesses that are there thriving. As a Minister of Foreign Affairs, I'll not be able to participate in business much. I'll be taking care of, if I'm approved, we'll be taking care of the foreign interest of this country, but the businesses will take a life of their own. There's a third question about the worrying trend of governors being investigated. I'd like to go through them, Mr. Chair. The first one was about Maruba Dam. I was never questioned or anything brought to me about Maruba Dam. I think there was an investigation. Somebody wrote a petition about it. All I know is that as the Maruba Dam was being scooped, I personally, and I picked the Bible and I swore, I went and I witnessed the works being done of the silting of Maruba Dam. And I think the investigative bodies, if they are investigating, let them do their work and let them charge if there was any mistake that was done. But I know that the work got done. Number two was about Danida. The 50 million being talked about Danida was money that was not properly accounted for, that was moved by some officers in my then government to other uses that were meant to go to health centers and health facilities. These monies were returned. There was a proper audit that was done, and this was corrected. And I even visited the Danida offices, and we had an agreement, and people who were to be surcharged were surcharged, and that was taken care of. On the issue of the 16 vehicles, and I'd like to speak about this, Mr. Chairman, been called a mega scandal. When I became governor, we were given 140 million shillings. And the 140 million shillings were to buy luxury vehicles for governors and the executive. I asked myself, we come from a country of low economics and come from a country where there was only 4 ambulances at the time in Machakos and 2 on top of stones. Would I buy luxury cars for myself when people are dying, or would I buy ambulances? So I opted to buy second-hand vehicles. Majority of Kenyans, the hustlers, they buy second-hand vehicles. So I bought 16 second-hand vehicles at a price of 35 million shillings. And I used the rest of the monies to buy 80 ambulances to serve the people of Machakos, so that I could drive. And I drove for 4 years, for about 8 years in Machakos, using a second-hand vehicle as the governor of Machakos, and all my ministers, so that our money can go to serve the people, not to serve the luxuries of Wakubwa. Mr. Chairman, as a result of those ambulances that we bought in Machakos, we've had over 864,000 beneficiaries. We have over 241,000 pregnant mothers have been ferried by those ambulances in Machakos. We have the fastest response time in Africa, second to South Africa. That is Machakos County ambulances. We have 51,122 children who are born in those ambulances. In the olden days, children were born in Ukambani called Mwanzia and Nzelani because they were born by the side of a road. Nowadays, those names are non-existent during my tenure because people are not born by the side of a road. So we're able to remove that shame. So the mega scandal that was there was that people were dying, mothers were dying because there were no ambulances, because of people wanting to have Ukubwa, and the rest went down. In terms of the issue of this 16 cases, it went to court, and I was never charged. And it was presented in court. We challenged. We said, why should we be charged for saving money? And eventually, the ESCC and the DPP said, actually, I should not even have been investigated. I should have been given an award. And a consent was written, and it was written clearly that I'll never be investigated of those charges because no money was lost.
Did the award arrive?
Through the blessings of God. And lastly, there's a question, Mr. Chairman, about branding Maendeleo Chap Chap. Maendeleo Chap Chap was my slogan, which I came up with as soon as I was sworn in. And so it was not a political party. And so we branded Maendeleo Chap Chap as a slogan to tell the people of Machakos that we want to do things in a Chap Chap manner. We're able to build a stadium in 4 weeks that is now FIFA approved. We build a people's park. We build a road that is existing between Makutano Mamwala and Kidimani, 33 kilometers in 3 months. We broke the world record. Maendeleo Chap Chap, to serve the people of Machakos and the people of Kenya, to show that it is possible. Later on, when Wiper Party and I fell apart, as it is in politics that happens, people said that I should have a party called Maendeleo Chap Chap because that is what I embodied. So that is how the transition went into. It was not branding for a party. It started on day one as a Wiper governor at the time. Lastly, I was asked a question about appending my signature about what you do not know. I don't want to go back to the games and the tricks that were played during the Azimio times when we joined, because even the Wiper leader, His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, said he signed what he did not know. And it's not that we signed what we did not know.
Point of order, Chair.
We had not seen.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes.
Chair, I would like to ask the nominee to kindly restrict himself to the questions and not to address matters that are not have not been brought, because the party leader of Wiper is not a nominee and is not one of the people that is being vetted.
Many people say they didn't know.
Let him answer the question
I want
for
to
himself.
repeat what I said. Let's ask questions and answer them without veering off into any parochial politics. We want to deal with issues that are asked, and let's go on.
Well guided, Mr. Chairman. I withdraw. And what happened, and I don't want to go into that history, it's been overtaken by events, is that we signed a document in good faith. And what was attached to that document is not what we were shown. It was totally different. What was deposited at the registrar of political parties, when we later found out, was a different document than the one that we had actually signed, what we called Utapeli, which was one of the reasons that I chose to leave Azimio, because I saw deceit and I could not really match what was happening. And I don't believe it was the entire Azimio. I think it was a few people who were playing games and were ruining it for the whole of the Azimio team that was really committed to fostering ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Honorable Junet Owen Bayer. I'll give to I'll give to Shurie. After Shurie, I'll give to Mishibogo.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I wanted us to clear with the preliminary issues first before we go very far. Chair, you was asked a question to the nominee, how much is his worth. Then he told you 420 million. He did not attach breakdown of that, like the other nominees, what that 420 entails, which land, which place, and such things. But anyway, I wanted to ask him, now that he has not attached, now it forces me to ask him, this hotel in Machakos, this white one, is it yours? A&L, yes. Even I had lunch with you one time there. Just for is it yours? Is it yours?
During your Azimio days?
During the old good days. Is it yours, your nominee? Yes or no?
Answer.
Just ask.
No, I want, because it will inform your chairman my next question. If he says no, I don't need to proceed with it. Is it yours? Yeah.
Yes, it is my hotel, built with a loan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, if you own that hotel alone, the way you are saying by a nominee, and you are saying you are worth 420 million only, ndugu yangu, I know this is a period people want to be poor because it's hustler time. Don't fear being rich. Just tell us how much you are. Without hotel, you cannot be 420. You cannot. That I've refused. You cannot.
Dr. Mutua, next person.
All right, thank you very much, Chairman.
Owen Bayer.
One of the key roles of a Foreign Affairs Minister, and in addition, you've been given the docket of looking at our missions abroad, is we have weak missions as a country. Weak missions because the attacheship that used to be there, used to have trade attaches, tourism attaches, educational attaches, in our missions to strengthen them, and they'll discharge their mandate very well. Today, if you go to our missions, you realize that they're very skeletal. And the work that is being done there, probably those people stay there to drink tea and mandazi only. But there isn't much work that they are doing. One of the areas that has suffered is tourism. Kenya used to be the foreign exchange earner in this country. The highest was tourism. The numbers were growing every day and were very good. But since these missions kind of thinned and these missions stopped doing the work that they were meant to do, tourism has gone down. I come from a very tourism-rich area, but we have suffered heavily in terms of numbers and income because the missions abroad have been weak. How, therefore, will you, as if you are confirmed as minister, strengthen Kenyan missions abroad and actually give Kenya the much needed foreign exchange that would come through tourism? That is my first question. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I have particular interest in the missions in Italy, where a bulk of the tourists that come from coast come from. There has been a complaint that we only have a mission in Rome, and yet a lot of the dealings are in Milan. How are you going to help the Kenyans that live in the other parts of Italy actually access mission services easily instead of having to travel all the way to Rome? I thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Bwana nominee, I want to get your take on this. If you get approved, you'll be going to a ministry that has a lot of civil servants who tend to be overlooked when appointments for high commissioners and ambassadors are appointed. Would you consider creating a quota system so that there's a certain number of professionals from the ministry get appointed so that they don't get demoralized, and another quota for other Kenyans? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mishi, the Honorable.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, Kenya sasa imekuwa mwanachama katika Baraza la Kiulimwengu katika mambo ya usalama na amani. Swali langu ni kwamba hivi sasa tunasikia kuna vita vya Urusi na Ukraine, na hivi sasa bei za bidhaa zimepanda sana hapa Kenya, kama bidhaa ya unga, bidhaa ya mafuta, na sana sana tunasikia ya kwamba sababu ni kwa sababu ya vita vya Urusi na Ukraine. Je, sisi kama taifa ama kama kwa mfano utakapopata wizara hii na kupitia serikali ya Kenya Kwanza, muna mikakati gani mkiwa wanachama katika baraza hili la kiulimwengu la usalama mtafanya kuhakikisha kwamba kumekuwa na amani ya kitaifa na kumekuwa na usalama ili hali ya kawaida iweze kurudi na Wakenya wengi ambao ni maskini waweze kujimudu kununua bidhaa ambazo ni muhimu sana za kimsingi? Swala langu jengine ni kwamba kuna Wakenya wengi sana ambao wanaozea katika majela katika nchi za nje, haswa bara la Asia, ambapo walikwenda kule kwa mambo ya ajira, lakini kwa tetesi ambazo si za ukweli na njia za kidhulma, njia tatanishi, wengi wameweza kuwekwa majela na wanaozea kule, na hakuna njia ambazo zinafanyika kuhakikisha kwamba Wakenya hawa wameweza kuachwa huru na hivyo basi waweze kurudishwa Kenya. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Dr. Mutua.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, the hotel that in Machakos, I talk about the worth of the hotel because it is still under ownership of, it is on loan. So when you own something that is under huge credit, it's very hard to say that it is yours unless you've cleared the credit. And that is why the cost of my value in the hotel is much, much less than I would like it to be. Hopefully one day in 10 years time when I own it 100%, then my value will be able to rise. Very good question, Mr. Chairman. The second question by Mheshimiwa Wenbaya through you, Mr. Chairman, it's about the diaspora. Yes, it is true we've got very weak missions. And this is a trend that has gone on for a long time. In the last few weeks, I've spent some time investigating how it is. Having been living overseas, we find that we really do not have attachés, we don't have office workers in our missions because of budgetary cuts. The budget that is given, and then you look at how the shilling has depreciated over time, we really cannot afford to have our officers serving our people in our high commissions and our embassies. So one of the things that I'll do if I'm confirmed and appointed and sworn in will be to come to Parliament, to the relevant committees, the Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations Committee, and also the Diaspora Affairs and Migrant Workers Select Committee, and push for a budgetary increase. It is quite a shame, Mr. Chairman, I shouldn't say this on here, but it's good for people to know that some of our embassies are so dilapidated that it is a shame when the ambassadors receive guests, they can't take them through some corridors, they take them through the back door because they have not been able to even paint the walls because of lack of budgetary support. One of the things that we need to do is that we need to use our embassies as offices to make money. We are moving from aid to trade. And to make money, you need to look like you don't need the money. You need to bring people there who you can convince. You need to bring investors. We need to have people who will be able to tour these countries and bring investments to this country. So we'll need proper funding of our embassies and high commissions. It is not wasted money. It is an investment, and that will be able to bear fruits. More so, especially even in tourism. You cannot get tourism without marketing. There's competition. Other countries are putting major advertisements all over the world. You go to these countries, they are going to fairs and everything. At times, our high commission and embassies do not have money for fuel for their vehicles to actually even go across town. So where will they go to actually market our country in a fair to bring tourists? So there's been a trend of reducing the monies given to foreign affairs, and I hope this will be able to change because we're able to show that any money plugged in will be recovered 100 times full. So I feel the pain, and which is a real pain. There was a question that was also asked about Italy and about different missions, and at the same point, we'd like to be able to open, and our strength as a country also lies in how our footprint in the world. And yes, Rome, we need a consulate or embassy in Milan. You look at, for example, China, with over 1.5, 1.6 billion people. We only have one embassy in Beijing covering a large country that's like a continent. We need a mission in Guangzhou, where there are very many Kenyans, so we can tap into manufacturing and some of these issues. You look at even in South America, yes, we have embassy in Brazil, but that's covering 450 million people. We need to bring trade. It is a shame that in a country like Brazil with 250 million people, it's the 12th largest GDP, with the 12th largest GDP in the world, that the value of goods that we sell to Brazil currently is zero, because there's nobody marketing it. So we need really to improve and really market our goods. Kenya Kwanza government is talking about value addition, is talking about creating markets, being able to sell our goods overseas. But where will they sell the goods? The goods will only be sold if the markets are found by the officers in the foreign and emissions. This third question is about civil servants, balance between political and professionals. And I do agree of a quota system. It is very important for somebody to enter the foreign service as a cadet, knowing that one day they'll work their way up all the way to become ambassadors. It's a brilliant idea, and it's something that I've already discussed, and something that I hope that if I'm confirmed, I'll be able to put it into sequence so that people realize they can actually grow through the ministry. We want to limit the number of political appointees because we want people who are professionals to be able to get into there. Basi swali la mwisho ni kuhusu salama na amani, kuhusu swali muulizo kuhusu vita vya Ukraine na Urusi na umoja wa kimataifa. Sisi kama nchi ya Kenya tumeshiriki sana. Tulikuwa kule New York ambapo kuna mswada uliletwa katika ile tume kuu la wanaita la kimataifa la mambo ya usalama, na tukaweza kupiga kura tukisema kwamba hatutaki vita hivi viweze kuendelea. Sisi kama nchi ambao mkakati yetu ya mambo ya usalama, mambo ya kimataifa, ni kusema kwamba tunashirikiana na nchi zote. Urusi ni rafiki wetu, Ukraine ni rafiki wetu, tunawahitaji, tunaongea nao. Tayari tumeongea na nchi ya Urusi, tumeongea na nchi ya Ukraine kwa kidiplomasia, tukaambia kwamba tuachane na vita, tuachane mikakati ya kuweza kuvamia nchi zingine ndio tuwe na amani. Lazima tucheze kidiplomasia, lakini pia tumesema kama nchi yetu ya Kenya hatutaki kuona nchi nyingine ikivamiwa na nchi nyingine, kwa sababu inakiuka ile mikakati yetu ambayo tumeweka katika uhusiano wetu wa mambo ya kimataifa. Pia tunajua kwamba swala la kupili kwamba kuna Wakenya wengi wako Myanmar, wako nchi nyingi ambapo wameweza kufungwa, wengine wameshikwa kule kama mateka, na nimesikia habari hizo zimekuwa zikichukuliwa tukijuujuu. Mimi nitazichukulia kwa njia ambayo inafaa kabisa. hata kama nitakwenda kule kutetea haki za Wakenya. Mkenya ni Mkenya, haijalishi umefanya nini. Wengine wamekamatwa kule, wanateswa kama maabusu, wengine wamekuwa kule ni kama watu ambao hawana nyumbani kwao. Tuweze kuwaleta nyumbani. Tayari tumewaleta kadhaa nyumbani, tunataka kuwaleta watoto wetu nyumbani wafike hapo. Wengine wanadanganywa, wanapotea. Tunataka pia kuambia kwamba wananchi ambao na watu ambao wanawajali. Asante. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, the next batch. The Honorable Amisi, the Honorable Mule, the Honorable Ferdinand, the Honorable Daud.
Thank you, Chair. And because I've been magnanimous enough before, allow me to ask 2 questions. Okay, I'll stick to that. Chair, to the nominee, labor migration as presented as a new frontier to the labor market. A country like Philippines, 40% of the GDP is from foreign remittance. Whatever Philippines has, I think Kenya has more. Where do we go wrong? How will you be able to work together in synergy with the Ministry of Labor? Migration, because as a country we do not have natural resources as much. We don't have the natural gas, we don't have the petroleum, we don't have mineral fossils. So we must look at other areas of diversifying our economy. Dubai, United Arab Emirates, decided to diversify from oil when oil was diminishing. Now it made Dubai a center of attraction to get from the global flow of income. Now it's now a center of interest of the whole world. As a country, I believe we must now get to diversify our economy, and we stop asking ourselves, we are reducing 300 billion from our budget. The next president will come and tell us he's reducing 1 trillion. So we are going to become, our policies is about how to make us more poor, and not what can we increase our budget. So that is the threat I see to this country. We are discussing now on how to reduce the budget instead of how we are increasing. And if we don't diversify our economy, and you are at the center of foreign, we need to know what are we selling to the world. You cannot be rich if you are not selling to the world. What are you going to help this country become rich?
Honorable Mule.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I want this to go straight to the nominee. It is in public domain that the office you held or the government you led of Machakos County, as we speak right now, it has one of the biggest debt in the country of 2.8 billion shillings, which is not paid, and is a debt which is being carried over to the next administration. Kindly, without any personal or emotions, try to convince this committee whether was that failure in your management, in your leadership, and in proper accounts of the county government of Machakos not to incur such debt, whereby we know very well the county government of Machakos has been receiving all requisite funds from the national government, development partners, and other local collected avenue, whereby we should not have a single debt. And for example, Makueni had a debt of less than 2-point-something million shillings by their close of gaps. My fear is one, with this experience and happenings within your leadership in Machakos, how do we grant you to be the eye of Kenya in the diaspora? Are we going to get to issues which relate to mismanagement, misappropriation, misunderstanding of management, And this is one of the key ministries we are looking forward in this country to make sure that at least we attract investors, we attract tourists, we attract jobs from foreigners. I want to be convinced and convince this committee, are you really suitable for this position with the history I've given for Machakos, with that debt which has been calculated by the Auditor General of 2.8 billion shillings, unpaid, contractors unpaid, services unpaid. Serious management issue.
Ferdinand. May I ask you this question? I'm one of the victims of the people who went to Middle East. And you said if you become the Minister for Foreign Affairs, you will go to Middle East. I think the problem here are the so-called cartels here and in the Middle East. Our people leave this place, and as soon as they get to Middle East, their passports are taken, and you know, they move from one house to the other, one house to the other. So I think what you do is basically tell us what we do with the cartels that are exporting our people to that place. As I'm talking to you, I have a cousin of mine whose body is lying in the Middle East. Secondly, on a different subject, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to find out what's happened to the visa. You know, the countries that are so-called very friendly to us, when they come here, we have no problem. But when you want to get a visa going to some of these countries, including a neighboring country like South Africa, it takes such a long time to get a visa. Sometimes you don't even get a visa. And some people even end up being stranded at the airport because they get there and there's nothing. They can't go back. They can't come. And so they spend 2, 3, 4 days, imagine, at the airports. So what are you going to do about that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Dr. Mutua, I would want to ask you 1 or 2 questions. We've got countries which normally offer us scholarships, university scholarships, college scholarships. Some of the friendly countries are India, Cuba, Algeria, Pakistan, Hungary, amongst others. I remember a couple of years back, the Indian High Commission telling me there were 100 vacancies for technical training colleges in India. But the scholarships can only come through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But when I went to follow up with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I was told they were not available. But the Indian High Commission told me they were there. And many like them are there. So what criteria is it being used to distribute those scholarships to deserving Kenyans and not being hawked to people to buy them? Because if it's not going to help the ordinary citizens and it's going to be hawked or sold to people, then it doesn't help at all. Secondly, our balance of trade. Many countries, our balance of trade is in favor of the other countries. What do you think you will do to even market our miraa so that our farmers in Nyambene can and Tigania can at least get something out of miraa, because that is one thing which is, I think it is at the core of our government as well. Thank you.
Dr. Mutua.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, there's a question about labor migration and Kenyan jobs. It is quite instructive. I watched the morning interview or vetting whereby Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi talked about the 480 billion shillings that are remitted from overseas, 350 to 480 billion shillings. Actually, our the diaspora remits more money to Kenya. It's our chief foreign exchange earner than even coffee, tea, and others. And we'd like to grow this, but need to be done in a very, very organized place. And so it is important for us to take advantage of this. There is no system as there is in Philippines, for example, whereby the government goes out to teach people how to look for jobs overseas and also train them and give them opportunities to find jobs. So if I am confirmed, I'm going to set up a unit in the ministry to teach Kenyans and also guide Kenyans on how to secure jobs overseas. How do you qualify for a job overseas? How do you become competitive? Because Kenyans are very bright. Kenyans are very well educated, they are very good, they can get jobs and they can remit money, but they have not been given an opportunity and shown. I'm also going to ask our embassies to be telling us, so we can tell Kenyans and publish widely, of opportunities that Kenyans can be able to look at and be able to go into the private sector, but also more so into the United Nations and other international bodies, so that Kenyans are also over there. One of the things that we'd like to do is also, we'd like to get our Kenyans overseas to save, because they're remitting a lot of money. Our president has been talking about Kenyan saving. We'd like to also get our Kenyans overseas to also save. Let them save here so that we can be able to borrow that money that is saved here or use that money. We've been talking about an infrastructure bond for years. We'd like to get that infrastructure bond realized so that Kenyans overseas can say we build that highway with our money from overseas. We also want to set up a network so that when you send your money here, you know the money is being used for the right use as a member of the diaspora. The second question was about the pending bills by Mheshimiwa Mule, Mr. Chairman, through you. And I was also surprised to see in the news about 2.8 billion, but what I had on my records was 1.6 billion from the control of budget. And we have a plan of how this money, and it was very clear how the money would be paid. It was very clear to the control of budget how the pending bills were accumulated. Some of them were accumulated because we had very many development projects. If you have a lot of development projects, others will carry over into new financial years. When some of them carry over to new financial years, they become pending bills, and they are listed even though some of them are ongoing. There are others whereby we had talked to the control of budget that we had said as a government I would not be able to pay them because they are white elephants. There are some things that were listed where a school was built, but you go to the ground, there's no school built. If I paid that pending bill, then I would be arrested and locked up because that is corruption. So that is how some of them have accumulated. There are others which really are real. We have poor exchequer, we're able to correct, and it's a challenge. We're dealing with the first 10 years of devolution. It was about balancing everything, getting everything going, but by the end, I'm very confident that I ran a very good government that was recognized, that had a lot of success in many, many areas, that was able to be an epitome or an example to many other counties. Mheshimiwa, through you, Mr. Chairman, talked about victimization of Kenyans through the cartels, and it is true. I have some tricks up my sleeve, and I don't want to speak about them publicly right now because, you know, these cartels will work on them. But I can assure you, within a few weeks, I'm dealing with these cartels, because I've been made to understand that some of them are even owned by government officials. And they're going to do everything because they're making tons and tons of money out of our people. And some of the things that we want to do is that it's a clear recording. If you're going to send our kids overseas for work, you need to have a record of who you are sending. You need clearance by the foreign ministry, not only by the labor ministry. And when they arrive in that other country, we like to get within 2 weeks to know which home, their domicile, and where they are working. If we don't get that list, then that organization will not be allowed to send any other person to that country ever again until that is met. Furthermore, it is the right of every Kenyan to bear their own passport upon themselves. And we are going to tell the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that the Kenyan passport belongs to the Kenyan. And you only surrender your passport if you're getting a visa, and others, you cannot surrender your passport because you're working. And if they can't agree for Kenyans to keep their passports among themselves, let's go to other countries. We don't have to go there and be slaves because they take our passports and we can't even travel anywhere. So we are going to ensure some of these things are not taken for granted. It's all about the government putting down its foot and saying, we are friendly nations, let's treat our people with respect. Mr. Chairman, the question about the Kenyan visas, and this goes hand in hand with the strength of the Kenyan passport. If you go to Google, you'll find that our Kenyan passport is number 75 in terms of the countries, in terms of its strength. This is because we are not really, our passport is not very strong. We can't go to many countries without visas. One of the things that I want to do, if I'm confirmed and sworn in, is to ensure that we get bilateral agreements with many countries signed, so that we can have reciprocal, so that Kenyans do not need a visa to go to some countries. Most of the time, these countries put what in Swahili we call vikwazos, because they believe that Kenyans will be going there, misbehaving and not coming back. But with the plan of President Ruto to grow the economy from the bottom up, Kenyans will not have a reason to flee their country. There will be opportunities for people to go, trade, and come back home. The other thing is also to look at some of the agreements that are sitting in Parliament that we're going to bring. For example, there's an MOU between the United States and the Kenyan government to quicken how Kenyans get visas to the United States, but it has sat in Parliament for a while. I'm going to fast track it so that it is approved, and it is so we can sign some of those agreements and many treaties that will strengthen our passport. I also would like to, if confirmed, is to introduce what is called a service passport for senior public government officials, so that there is a diplomatic passport, there's a regular passport, and also a service passport. This is done by many countries, so that our senior government officials have a service passport that enables them to get visas in a faster way to be able to go and carry out their duties, which may not per se be diplomatic, but they're able to carry out their duties. It will put less pressure on the diplomatic passport, and also it will ensure that our passport gets a better ranking at the end, so that the mamambogas and others can also be able to go to many countries without having to go for a visa. The Mheshimiwa, through you, Mr. Chairman, Dawood asked about scholarships. Very, very important. And this is because of lack of follow-up. I've noticed that there are very, very many treaties, agreements, follow-up of meetings that have really not taken root. One of the things that I plan to do, if I'm confirmed and sworn in, is to ensure that there is a person sitting in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with direct linkages to every other ministry. Because we want to go trade, but we also look at these specific scholarships to other places. We want to be able to announce these scholarships to the public. Si mambo ya kujuana. I have a good friend of mine, if I can use him an example, called Professor Frederick Iraki. Grew up very poor, was teaching somewhere in Western Kenya. He saw an advert in the newspapers, I think it was Taifa Leo, and he was able to apply to the foreign ministry for a scholarship on merit without knowing anybody. He got a scholarship. He's now a full professor. Went overseas, studied, full professor. Hakujua mtu. So we want to create a system whereby children of the poor, when we say the child of the poor will be able to sit at the same table with the child of the rich, so that you don't have to know anybody for you to be able to get these scholarships, and we'll publish them. And also I'll be on my tours overseas. I'd like to be accompanied by members of parliament, because I have seen when I was working in government, whenever there's a team that comes from the United States, from England and other countries, they bring their members of parliament, they bring their members of Congress to accompany the minister. I like to get that habit, because you understand and you can be able to lobby for me and lobby for the country of Kenya, more scholarships and more opportunities for Kenyans. It is not just a job of executive. This is a shared, I want to have work together with Parliament, because it is about Kenya. Kenya is not just about the Foreign Office. It's about all of us as leaders being able to support our people here in Kenya. In terms of balance of trade, yes, a problem, because majority of our products don't have value addition. So we are selling our products raw. So it finds that we're importing finished products. We actually sent our products overseas and they are imported to Kenya with value addition. The Kenya Kwanza government is all about value addition. We like to add value to our products so that more money can remain in the pockets of wananchi, and this will ensure that our balance of trade is balanced. In terms of miraa, we look at how do we package our miraa, but it's not about package, it's how do you market our miraa overseas, and how do you get smooth transition, because that is a product so that the people of Tigani, as you put it, can also have more money in the pocket. So this is a critical part of the plan of Kenya Kwanza. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We agreed no lifting of hands. Yes. Naisola, Gikaria, Raso, Posing, Emase.
Thank you, Chair. To Honorable Mutua, many things...
Actually, there are only two of you left after Emase, Murugara, and Mukami. You can take those 6.
All right, thank you, Chair. To Honorable Mutua, many think that you have zero international experience. What are your views on self-determination in relation to this nomination? Is self-determination real or a mirage? And whether experience actually matters? And the second question, in your view, what new roles will the State Department of Diaspora Affairs do that the existing government structures don't do or will not do? Remembering that in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, it was actually to be a ministry. What issues do you think will need to be handled under the Diaspora Affairs docket? Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe, Chair, at some point in Parliament, so at some time, I think you need to give a ruling as to whether this aspect of the domestic workers out of the country, whether it is a foreign affair matter or it's a labor, or sometimes we leave it to labor and maybe it is foreign, or it's the two of them. And I think your direction will really give us some answers to this.
It is cross-cutting. They live here exactly under labor.
Correct.
They're out there under foreign.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's when they are addressing that, then it's a cross-cutting issue. Maybe the two ministries need to. The
government has collective responsibility, and the minister, if approved, may wish to work very closely with labor to ensure that they synchronize the process and continue monitoring and managing our Kenyans out there.
Thank you, Speaker. And I also want to thank the nominee. You know, he has actually specified, specifically which some of these countries are. The issue has also been generalized, but now when it comes with a particular area that is bringing this problem, then I think it is important. He also mentioned that he wants some of these properties that he has is out of the income he earned when he worked in the Middle East, if I heard him correctly. Maybe he needs to give us an experience of then and what is happening now. But the very last one, Honorable Chair, is about the questionnaire, number 27. And I had the nominee giving us a very emotive and very, you could feel where he has come from, and the assistance that he got when he was rising and through his education and missing out to school because of school fees. But Honorable Chair, if you look at number 27 in the pro bono charity work, donation to charity and things, he writes not applicable. Honorable Chair. How then could you have benefited from well-wishers and good Samaritan, and yet in your tenure, you're not giving back? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Yes. Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Mutua, if Parliament will approve your nomination, you will actually be the #2 diplomat for Kenya. And the ministry that you will be heading is the face of Kenya out there. In the last parliament, we passed the act, that is the Foreign Service Act. And our foreign policy is anchored on economic, cultural, environmental, and diaspora. Now, from your last job, you have been the governor for Machakos for 10 years. I think it's not a mean feat. It means the people of Machakos saw that you are doing certain things right, maybe not 100%. So my question is, what is the new thinking or new initiative that you are likely to bring to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs so that it can grow on the pillars around which the Kenyan foreign policy is anchored? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Gikaria, switch off your mic, please.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. You know, Mr. Speaker, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as said by Honorable Raso, is actually the face of Kenya outside there. And by so doing, Honorable Speaker and the Chair, it is one of the most prestigious ministries to work in. I have assessed, Honorable Chair, and I want to ask if the nominee is approved by this committee and finally the House, to go and do audit of small communities. Now they come from Kenya Kwanza, which is bottom up economically. I want him also, when he's going there, to look at the bottom up community, so that to see, actually, is foreign affairs face of Kenya. It may be face of Kenya outside there. What about at home? And I want you to be very specific to some of these small communities, including Pokot community. How many are they in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? And I'm taking an example. I'm not saying only Pokot, maybe Pokomo or elsewhere in this country. How many are there in the ministry? So that at least you, as Honorable Garia says, you bring real change if you are approved by this parliament. So that the face of Kenya does not become face of Kenya outside there as ministry, but at home is face of some few communities. Thank you, Speaker.
My turn. Thank you, Chair.
Yes,
my question is the nominee. Why do you think you are the best fit for this position? What is it that you're going to do differently? And I was also looking at the ministry itself. We do have the returning diplomats. You know, we take these individuals out there and they come back with a lot of skills, global experience. What are you going to do in terms of developing and retaining this talent and making good use of these individuals when they return, probably by making sure that they are, reassigned responsibilities or deployed to other ministries or boards where they can add more value and contribute towards the development of this country? Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the nominee. Initially, agriculture was the largest foreign exchange earner. I think later it was overtaken by tourism, and now it's been overtaken by diaspora. And with the continuation of what is happening out there, especially to our labor force, that may also go. And one reason why agriculture was overtaken is because of branding. That as Kenyans, we do not brand our produce properly, and maybe we do not sell those brands as brands of Kenya. For example, we have coffee and tea, but out there, whether it is in Turkey, it is Dubai, you'll be told that the coffee, the tea they are taking is from Egypt, which is surprising, and that tea possibly is from Kenya. The coffee, and we have some of the best coffee in the world. You're told it's Brazil or Thailand or from wherever. As the Minister for Foreign Affairs, I think you're going to be the driver of the policy brand Kenya. How do you propose to work with the Ministry of Trade so that this is realized and we are able to add more foreign exchange and as a result grow the economy as we intend to do.
Kami.
Our nominee, I have one question for you regarding the visas. Kenyans have complained about the amount of time and resources spent when trying to obtain visas to visit countries that we enjoy cordial relationships with, such as South Africa, America, UK. The nationals of this country do not suffer the same inconvenience, and some even get visas on arrival. What will your ministry do to address this concern? Because it's a tall order.
Yes, Dr. Mutua, answer those 7 questions, or the 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mheshimiwa Laisuda asked about my international experience. I lived overseas for about nearly 15 years. As a student, I worked there. I know how life is. I've interacted with foreigners, and so I have a knowledge. When I was government spokesperson, my matters were not just local, but also dealt with a lot of international issues through the cabinet office. And the whole issue of self-determination it's quite important. And you know, as a policy in Kenya, our foreign policy believes in that every country has a right to self-determination. Every country has a right to enjoy its freedoms without being attacked by another country. And we want to be able to be seen as a solid country that has a foreign policy that does not keep on shifting with the wind. So we are quite solid about how we do things. Because of living overseas also with the diaspora, I'm quite aware of the challenges of the diaspora. I know that the National Diaspora Council of Kenya has never been operationalized. That is one of the first things that if I'm approved and sworn in that I will do. I want to enter into a discussion with the United Kingdom, with the United States and other countries where we've got a lot of Kenyans went there, fell out of status, they're hiding, they don't have status, they can't come back home, to see ways of waiving the problems they faced without them being deported, so they can get waivers, so they can leave and get legalized where they are, so they can be able to contribute very, very well to this country. We're looking at being able also to sign more MOUs that will be able to help the diaspora be able to work very well between us and then the banking field and others as we continue. So I feel that I'm quite prepared in terms of my personal experience and experience working in government for over 20 years. The second question is about the foreign affairs and issues which, Mr. Chairman, you're able to answer very well about the cross-cutting issues between Labour. But we'd like to make it very clear that if I'm approved and sworn in, issues of Kenyans overseas will fall in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I think Foreign Affairs has been passing the buck a lot to the Ministry of Labour. But Ministry of Labour will also have to get its act together. And because Kenya Kwanza, we are a team, we'll be able to work as a team to harmonize, so that even though there's processing done and approvals, we're working hand in hand. But when Kenyans are overseas, working overseas, I don't want them to go to any embassy and being told this is not a foreign affairs issue, this is a labor issue, Ministry of Labor issue. You're in a foreign country, you don't know anybody about labor, you know the mission. You want to be protected by your mission. I want people to be proud of the country they come from and to know that their country has their back day and night at every single time. There was the issue about the properties, yes, and the questionnaire. As a Christian, the Bible says that when you give with your left hand, your right hand should not know what you've been given. A lot of my pro bono work and the work that I've been doing through the church. And I don't like listening to what I've done as a Christian, because you're not supposed to go and scream out there what you've done as a Christian. I sponsor more than 100 children through school myself, because I know how it changed my life by being sponsored, and many other things that I'm able to do that I don't like blowing my own horse, because I do it from the bottom of my heart and as a service to God, not as a service to man. There is a third question about being the number 2 diplomat for Kenya, and the Foreign Service Act, and the whole issue of the economy, culture, and trade. We are moving. You know, one of the reasons that Kenya is looked down upon even with visas is because we're a poor economy. You know, if you're poor, people don't take you seriously as much as if you're rich. If you're rich, you're taken seriously. And the whole idea is to make our country rich. We want people to know that Kenya can be a land of opportunity. And my job will be able to do what I can. For example, my dream and I would like to work with members of parliament and governors so that I could go out there with my ambassadors if I am approved. And we say as a country that we are going to bring to every county a new factory that will be able to provide jobs to our Kenyans and grow the economy so that we can all grow and make money. Because at the end of the day, it's all about money in the pocket. And we want our people to have more money in the pocket. And that's one of the things that we've said as a government that we would like to be able to do. Mr. Chairman, the other question was about the audit of small communities. I have to admit, Mr. Chairman, that I was flabbergasted, awed, shocked, amazed, confused when I looked at the list of recent appointments and other appointments to the senior levels in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It clearly does not represent the balance of the face of Kenya. This I'll be able to advise the president so we can be able to correct this. Every Kenyan needs to know they have a place in their government. And we are going to make sure that every Kenyan, regardless of where you are born, regardless of who your parents are, regardless of which corner you come from, you feel that you can participate in nation building in the various government departments. And I believe this is what our president is all about. And also to look at issues of skill-based. We want people who are skilled to know that you can work hard, you can be chap and be able to move up the ladder so that it's not skewed about who is knowing who. For example, there's the issue about postings in the ministry. We need to make it public. You know, now it's a hidden secret. You know, you actually don't know who is being posted until you find out somebody is missing and you realize they have been posted somewhere. We want everybody to know who's been posted where so that people say, huyu ameenda mara tano, nimeenda mara mbili. Why can't I also go and serve my country outside? We want to create a sense of fairness so that people feel that they are fair. Mr. Chairman was also asked the question about why do I think I'm the best for this position. I want to thank the President for giving me this opportunity. I've worked overseas. I have studied communication, and diplomacy is my second nature. As a government spokesperson, I was able to interact with any people, and I know what it takes. And I believe I have the talent and the gusto and the strength to be able to transform and change the way the ministry operates for the benefit of Kenyans. We have a clear plan in Kenya Kwanza, and I was part of the architects of that plan, so I understand clearly what we need to do to work in that ministry, and I believe that I'll be well placed and I'll make Kenya proud as we move on. The sixth question was about the diaspora and how we are being overtaken, and it is true. Mr. Chairman, you find that even flowers come from this country, they go to another country, then they're sent to another country, and people think the flowers come from that other country. We need to find a way of branding everything that comes from our Kenya, and that's when it comes down to even the value addition. We need to add value to our products. We need to be able to say this comes from Kenya and be able to do it proudly and get it out there so that whenever anything is value added, we're able to make more money. And lastly, there was the issue about obtaining visas and the cordial relationship with some countries. People come here, they're able to walk in, but for us, getting into some countries like going to heaven by the process of the visas. These are some of the issues that I'll be able to work closely with the ambassadors, work closely with this country, sign bilateral agreements so as to make it easier for Kenyans. And we'll try and start with Nipe Nikupe. If we do it for you, do it for us and see how it is, because we are in the same world. world. But in the same world, we need also to see how we can improve the standing of our passport. Some countries in Africa, like Botswana, for example, their passport is quite strong. They can just walk into the US and just, in some other countries and just, get their visa on arrival. Whereas here it's a process. So we want to get our country to that level. Having lived overseas, having traveled, I know what it means for people to line up for visas. We want to remove that shame. And I believe I'm up to the task. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Mutua, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Our athletes, they give us the most visibility everywhere. Through them, our national anthem is played in most unexpected places. But increasingly, it's been happening that when our athletes go out there to conquer the world, they don't enjoy any protocol support. And the head of protocol in the country lies in your ministry. What arrangements do you have to ensure that our greats like Eliud Kipchoge and others have at least some protocol support wherever they go to arrange their press briefings, their feasibility, their marketing, and all these things that we see being done to athletes from even lesser countries? When Maria Mutola was the conqueror of the world from Mozambique, she was accorded protocol at the level of a minister. Of course, ours are too many. We may not take it to that level. But what are you planning to do for our athletes? You find petty traders carrying diplomatic passports, and our world-conquering athletes don't have. What are your thoughts on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A very good question. There are two ways. I was lucky to be a journalist because I lived in Australia at the time and witnessed the 2000 Olympics. And I saw our athletes and some of the struggles they went through. And I love sports, so I've been able to see some of these things. And one of the programs that I have in place is to set up our protocol officers, not only for athletes, but even to Kenyans. Kenyans have been complaining that when they go to embassies, they're not treated well. They're not treated with respect when they live in the diaspora. And I want to ensure that when you go to an embassy, to a high commission as a Kenyan, you are treated with the respect and dignity that you deserve as a Kenyan, and you can come out saying, yes, my country really loves me. So I'm going to institute a program to take care of athletes and even top business people when they go to these countries, because they are also income earners. They are bringing foreign exchange to our country. It is also a shame that even some of our soccer players, we've seen them in the past sleeping in airports because there was no proper protocol or there is no money. And so I'll be coming back to Parliament and requesting for funds so that we can always have an emergency kitty in our high commissions and embassies, so we can be able to fly and take care of our soccer players. If there's a player or athletes that has fallen in the wayside, to remove that shame and give them the recognition that they deserve. We also, one of my plans that I put through as Kenya Kwanza plan is also to have a program for our athletes on how to invest and save their money, so that as they make their money, they are not just spending their money. Part of their money is going into saving, because you cannot run forever. After a while, somebody else will be able to run faster than you. A better soccer player will play better than you, so that you have something left, so that you can be able to invest, get into business or get into work, so that you don't die poor. Then it becomes a shame that you represented this country but you're dying poor. So we can be able to set up that in collaboration with the ministry in charge of sports. And lastly is we need to have galas and recognition when they come back and treat them well. When it comes to issues of diplomatic passports, I totally agree with you. And I'll be, if I'm nominated, if I'm approved and sworn in, I'll be taking to cabinet a memo to discuss on who should and who should not have diplomatic passport. With the introduction of the service passport, we need to come up with a clear criteria. In my mind, for example, I think that members of parliament who are our top diplomats, because they understand the problems on the ground. They should be able to be facilitated to go overseas with the right documentation to be able to work, not just people who are connected to have diplomatic passports. But also we need to leave to save the sanctity of the diplomatic passport, because if a diplomatic passport is given to everybody around, it lowers the ranking of our passport, which means that our Kenyans who are down there, Mama Bogas, now have to line up for more visas. So it's a balancing act. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Mutua. Now we're coming to an end of your hearings. I give you 3 minutes to tell us your wish.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the committee, and I want to thank for the members for the very, very insightful questions that they have been able to ask me, and I hope I've been able to answer them. And I humbly request you to approve my nomination so that I can be given an opportunity to serve this country in a way that I know will transform this country. I want to be able to work clearly to make sure that Kenya is known to be a country that wants to trade, not aid. We don't want to go and beg and get aid. Yes, aid is good. We'll be getting support, but we want to trade. Kenyans do not want a hand down. Kenyans want a hand up. Kenyans want to be given opportunities, and that is where I'm coming in. In terms of diaspora, I'm going to fight for the rights of diaspora. Having been the diaspora minded myself, understand the pains, I'll be able to work on those things. Marketing Kenya is very important. Kenya needs to be also a conference place where conferences can come to this country and we make a lot of money. It's a low-hanging fruit, so we're going to support that a lot, even as we champion climate change, because as you know, in this country, how the weather is, we have to fight for climate change, matters of environment and others. And I'll work with everybody to ensure that the Kenya Kwanza government under President Ruto succeeds, because we are working as a team to ensure our country grows. Mr. Chairman, I want to assure you that mbele iko sawa.
Thank you, Dr. Mutua. You are now released and at liberty to go to your other duties. Honorable members, we have saved 5 minutes from Dr. Mutua. I give you a stretch of 5 minutes as we ask the sergeant to look for Mama Alice Wahome as our next nominee. Bring in Alice Wahome in 5 minutes.